got you on the rebound. I blew it.
Both ways.
Move like that. I might wow, pun you wow, you're all in the face truth. Blessing of the new moon. Barakatha Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Atamanawa, Hakadash, Bashalawam, the water, Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the new moon in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Alim Asherai Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Rayam Mayamim Oh Harim Mayan Yabawa sorry Yabawa Maya Hawa Shai Shai Shamayim Warataza La Yanathan Lamawat Ragalia Yala Yanawum Shashua Marka Hanna La Yanawum, Walla Yashan, Shashuma, Yashrilla, Yahweh, Shamaria, Yahweh, Tazalia, Ayu, Yim, Yawamam, Hashamash, La Kaya, Wayarak, La Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamaria, Nakau. Ra Yashama Na Pasha Yahweh Yashama Abalake Waya My Fa I will Basham Yahweh the water Amen.
Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shemaiah Sharela, hero Israel. Shemaiah Sharela, Yahweh, Elohim, Yahweh, Shemaiah Sharela, Yahweh, Elohim, Yahweh, Shemaiah Sharela, Yahweh, Elohim, Yahweh.
Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. One.
Amen. Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abinawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwat Keth, Aba'ay, Rotazawanka, Hayya, Aisha, Barataza, Kaba Shemayim, Nathan Lanawa, Lakham, Yawam, Zad, Wasalaknawa, Kabawak Nawa, Kasalak Nawa, Kabawak, Well, I be here now. Oh, the silent above. I was shining with Mariah. Kaya, Laka. I'm a luck with what Allah, what the parrot. What I will Amen.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. I Sharama Tazawaf, 10 Commandments. La'ad, Yahayat, Lakad, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanyat, La'ad, Taishayat, Lakad, Kasod, Wala'ad, Thaibidam, La'ad, Alakwaka, Shamwa, Yahawah, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawam, Hashabah, Lakudashwa, Kabad, Abiyaka, Wa Amaka, La'ad, Daratazak, La'ad, Tana'at, La'ad, Daganat, La'ad, Dainad, Shakur, La'ad, Dakhamat, Ko, Asherat, Lara'ayaka, Amen.
Deuteronomy 5 and 6. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy power hath commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thine cattle, nor thine stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy power brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy power commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy power hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, his manservant or his maidservant, his ox or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Amen. Yeshabah, be seated. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asharan, Finanawa, Pari Agapan, Duwad Aman. La Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Yashra. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Bagua, Panyua Jerusalem, stand up, face Jerusalem. Barakatah Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Nabiyah, Wanawa'eh, Aliyawan, Malak, Shau Shamayim wa Raktaza wa Kau Dabarium Kayayam wa Gum Hamashiach Mayahawa Adawanawa Ahabnawa Apalab Yawa Aitaza Yahawasha Zakarnawa Yahawa Bartazawan Ainka Yasha'ala Izarnawa Banai what's up Yasha'ala Oh Nanawa Yam Yam Aita Kayawam Yam Makodam Baba Koshai Shalak Mike Allah Watazwadak Alahayam La Maganawa Raparnawa Washama Elnawa Bakwo Shalak Haroka Shau Yawashai Lanawa Lamadnawa Rabian Kakame Tapawana What I Shau the Barka Basham Yahawashai for what them Yah Amen. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, HaTorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, Awar, Lara Awa. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, Karan, Kayo, Lakorab, Ha'ain, Shabbat. You see that? Okay, so Shalom Yasharallah. So Shalom, everyone that's here in Philly. Shalom, everybody watching us on live stream. And Shalom, everybody listening to us on teleconference. Welcome to Hayat Shalom Kanas, or the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the descendants of slaves, as well as the indigenous peoples found throughout North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean mainly, make up the southern and northern kingdoms of the 12 tribes of Israel. And that we as a people have fallen to a lower state, politically, economically, even religiously, because we broke the laws of God found in the Bible given to us by Moses, and that we come out of this lower state by turning back these commandments we broke by following our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who did no sin, other was God found in his mouth, and who came to redeem his people. So one way we do that is by keeping the new moon holy, which is why we come together this evening. So this is the new moon, at least in this part of the world, in the hemisphere, based on when the sundown was in our particular region that we're at. So Ashar Kadash, let me change the bottom here real quick so you guys can see that. So this here says Ashar Kadash. So these first three letters are a shah and a ra, or Ashar, which means happy, and then Acha, Ada, and Asha. Sometimes you might see Shamak Kadash, which means a similar thing, like peaceful or happy Sabbath. But then I have Chamayasha, that's how you would say fifth in the Hebrew, or Cha, Ama, Ya, Asha, and Ya. And finally, Yashara'Allah, together is Israel. So what you see scrolling at the bottom in English is the same as what you see there in the Hebrew, which just says Happy Fifth New Moon Israel. And my name is Nabia Zerbabal. I have the privilege once again of going through the service with you guys, as I did earlier this evening when we did the Sabbath service. I just want to thank the Most High in Christ by way of the Holy Spirit. Without him, this wouldn't be possible. You can write down for your records today that today is the 3rd of August, 2024. And according to our calendar, which is the solar lunar calendar, or the Hebrew calendar, it would be the 5th month and the 1st day, since we're in the new month. August 3rd, 2024 being the holy day according to the Gregorian calendar. Okay, so let's go to Numbers 10 and 10 to start off. So Numbers chapter 10 and verse 10. We go back to when we were first being set up as a nation of people, our ancestors. We were coming out of Egypt and traveling in the wilderness and arranging ourselves according to the law given to Moses, our king and leader at that time. Where we were instructed to do this. So Numbers chapter 10 and verse 10, which reads, also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. Right? So Most High telling Moses to tell the people, in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, which is what the time is that we're in right now, the beginning of the month, us being in the new moon, where the moon doesn't shine forth any of her light, right? Totally dark. It says we're supposed to blow with the trumpets over our burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of our peace offerings, right? Now, Christ being ultimate sacrifice, that being the reason why we don't do the peace offerings, but we go through Christ as the ultimate sacrifice for the sins of our nation. But before that took place, we would normally do these things, come together and then feast, and then do certain offerings, which you read about later on in Numbers, namely the 28th chapter. It'll tell you exactly what we did during the new moon, as far as which offerings we did. It says that they may be to memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. So something we're supposed to do all the time, every year, in remembrance to Him. So this isn't something that's supposed to go away or something that's supposed to be like yesterday's news. We need the new moon. The new moon is crucial for us to know which holy days to keep and what time of the year that we're in, as far as the seasons. And the scriptures tell us that. So like I mentioned before, something that we did specific during the new moon, if you go to Numbers 28. Numbers 28, and we start from verse 11. Numbers 28 and 11. So these two chapters, Numbers 20 and chapter 29, go into which offerings we do specifically during which holy days, right? And the specific offerings, the recipes for those are given to us in the first chapters of Leviticus, right? As far as how to do a peace offering, how to do a burnt offering, how to do a meat offering, etc., etc. So this, with these chapters, go into how many of those to do when the holy day comes around. I'm just going to read about the ones for the new moon right now. Numbers 28 and 11, it says, and in the beginnings of your months ye shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord, or Yahweh. 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot. So tell us which animal we should offer up for a burnt offering. You go into Leviticus chapter 1, it goes into how to do a burnt offering, right? And what different kinds of burnt offerings you can do. 12, and 3/10 deal of flour for a meat offering. Chapter 2 of Leviticus goes into how to do a meat offering and what the recipe is for that. Mingle with oil for 1 bullock and 2/10 deal of flour for a meat offering. Mingle with oil for 1 ram. So meat offerings will oftentimes accompany a burnt offering. 13, and several tenth deal of flour mingled with oil for a meat offering unto 1 lamb for a burnt offering of a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto Yahweh. 14, and their drink offering shall be half an hin of wine unto a bullock, and the 1/3 part of an hin unto a ram, and a 1/4 part of an hin unto a lamb. This is the burnt offering of every month throughout the months of the year. Then it says, finally, 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering unto Yahweh shall be offered, besides the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. Right? So then it mentions also that we would do drink offerings as well as sin offerings. We can read about those in the chapters that come after, named Leviticus chapters 4 and 5. I think a little bit of part 6 as well, or chapter 6 as well, as far as going into a drink offering, what we gave up and how much. But I'll stop there because in verse 16, I was going into what we did for the Passover. So that's Numbers 28, 11 through 15. So we're going to read this in Isaiah, as we typically read in Isaiah, the last, second to last verse in Isaiah, about these things being done continually, right? That all flesh shall come to do it before the Most High during this time, which is the time of the new moon, meaning that it's going to be known throughout the earth to keep the new moon. It won't just be a thing of the Israelites that have been called into this truth, following it the right way, or fake Jews doing it a day before or a day later, since the Most High gave us that little token to show us they're not the real Jews, as much as they want to try to perpetrate as though they are, right? Or you got certain Eastern cultures, right? They'll acknowledge the moon for one thing or another, right? Like you see certain traditions with Moab and whatnot. I think even Ammon too. They deal with things concerning the moon, right? So you'll see different things as far as the new moon, acknowledging the moon for one thing or another. But the scriptures give us the true understanding of how we are to revere the new moon, and that we're not supposed to make it into an idol or a god. It's a creature. It's not the creator. Because other nations will revere the new moon, but then deal with it as though it's a god or a goddess, right? In the case of the Greeks and Romans, right, with their what do you call it, Artemis / Diana worship. But no, we're just supposed to acknowledge it as a celestial body the Most High made for us, a great light in the heavens to look to know what to do and when in the earth. Just to show that real quick, go to Deuteronomy. Chapter 4. Start from 14. Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 14. Where it reads, and the Lord, or Yahweh, that's how you say his name in the ancient Hebrew, commandeth me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments. A lot of it was in Deuteronomy, which we translate that deutero and then nomos. It just means second law, right? Because a lot of things here are repeated. Kind of like how astronomy means star law or law of the stars. Deuteronomy just means second law. You translate that. It wasn't called that in the Hebrew, but all in all, that's the reason why we have that name for it now. Like I said, many of the laws are repeated here, just to make sure we got it the first time. So laws that might have been given to us in Exodus and Leviticus, they're given to us again from Deuteronomy. Just like when we did the prayers this first time starting out, I know, Kahan, you actually read the ones in Deuteronomy. You can read the ones in Exodus 20, you can also read the ones in Deuteronomy chapter 5, right? You'll see those same 10 commandments listed again. Just as an example.
I have to put a note in that to say that it's the same thing. I have to look for Deuteronomy chapter 5.
Right. So Deuteronomy 4 and 14 again. And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments. You might do them in the land where ye go over to possess it. Just talking about Israel, since we didn't conquer it yet, we were still in the wilderness. Verse 15, take ye therefore your good heed of yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord or Yahweh spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, right? Going back earlier on in the story when we first came out of Egypt. 16, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, right? It's going to one of the most important of the 10 commandments as far as not making an idol to worship. Remember, it's what we do and it's why we do it, right? So making the graven image itself isn't wicked, but to make it as if it's something that made you or something as though it's to be revered, that's when you go off. Because once again, we're only supposed to worship the Creator. It says in 17, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air. You look at empires then and now, you see how they'll have certain gods that they set up. Even they try to talk about them past tense and saying, oh, we used to still worship these, but then they'll still keep up their museums or certain monuments to be dedicated to those false gods, or make movies or make film, write books, right, to remember those gods by, right? And they'll just say, oh, it's entertainment. But still, in their heart of hearts, it's to call on them as this, yes, they're actually still real. Yes, they still are something that's part of my culture, even though I might be in America now, or I'm dealing with this, or I'm dealing with this or that now. So it says, the light is of any beast that is on the earth, the light is of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the light is of anything that creepeth on the ground, the light is of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And like I say, look at these idols that existed before. Sometimes they will be shaped like a man or woman, but then have like animal parts, like the head of a bird, or the head of a cat, or the head of a crocodile, some other creature, right? Or they could turn into creatures, they could shapeshift sometimes. They might come into earth as a man or woman, but then change into an animal, depending on the stories they have associated with them. Or they might be associated with an insect or a certain type of bug, right? Like thinking about with Egypt, how they had worship associated with the scarab beetle, right? Which is supposed to be pertaining to the sun god Ra. But now check out verse 19. Here's the main reason why I got this. Unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest thou be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. So saying, lest thou lift up thine eyes, meaning this is not something that you should do. Don't fall into this trap. The other nations around you will fall into this trap, but I want you to know better than that as my people. But I'll stop there in 19. Just remember, back in verse 15, where we kind of got rolling. We started in 14, but 15, where it says, take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves. So the only way we can take good heed is by adhering to the Most High's commandments, the Most High's righteousness. And now, as we usually do, let's go into that example where we show our forefathers keeping the new moon. 1 Samuel chapter 20. 1 Samuel chapter 20. Start from verse 5. 1 Samuel 20:5, going to the time when King Saul was ruler. And we have a man named David who was friends with his son Jonathan, and they're making a plan as far as what to do for this new moon that's coming up, because as he's going to impart, or as David's going to impart to Jonathan, his father seeks his life without a cause. He did no wrong to deserve what his father's trying to kill him for. So they come up with a plan. So in 1 Samuel 20:5, it says, 1 Samuel 20:5, and David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon. I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. It says, but let me go, that I might hide myself in the field unto the third day at evening. So he's telling Jonathan, tomorrow is the new moon. So whatever new moon this was doesn't say, but it's letting us know that what the day that was coming up was the new moon. I think that new moon service you did not too long ago, you kind of brought out some details about at least what season more than likely I think this new moon is in, right? I thought it was pretty cool. But nonetheless, whenever the new moon is, we're supposed to do the same thing anyway, right? He said, I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, because he was a part of the king's household. That was part of the king's power. When you read in 1 Samuel 8, he could go throughout the land and call anybody unto his command, whether it be in his army, or to be a part of his court, or to be someone that like prepares his garden, or to prepare food for him and for his court. He had that power to do that. So David, showing valiantness in battle against Goliath a couple chapters previous, was called to be his armor bearer. So normally he would sit with the king and the rest of his court. We're going to read about who was normally there as you read down. So he makes a plan to say, look, let's let 3 days go by, and we're going to pretty much have a signal between each other, right? That'll be between you and me, to let it be known whether or not the coast is clear or not, that I can come back into the household or not, or if my father, King Saul, still wants to take your life. So jump to verse 24. It says, so David hid himself in the field. So now, we know the story, we're reading it from our vantage, but those besides Jonathan, King Saul, and those that are going to go sit at the table for the new moon feast, they don't really know what's going on as far as why David's not there. It says, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. So the king had a seat by the wall where he usually sat at. Jonathan was there. Abner, his general, was there, or his captain of the host. And David's place was empty. But remember, King Saul doesn't know why. So what does King Saul think? This is going to reveal other aspects when it comes to how we're supposed to keep the new moon holy. Verse 26, nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. So he thought, oh, that's why he's not here. He must be unclean for one reason or another, right? And we go into the laws of uncleanness. We find there's different ways that a man or a woman can become unclean. Some ways, both either men or women can become unclean. Some things are specific to men and women. Some things are don't really care about your sex as far as how you can become unclean, as far as what you may do coming across a dead body or coming across unclean meat from an animal, right? But then there's other things that are specific to a man or woman's anatomy, right, that will make them unclean. So he's thinking there must be a reason why he's not here, and it must be because he's unclean. It's clearly he's usually here at the feast with us. He sits with us normally anyway.
Like he really want David to sit there. He wants to kill David.
Oh, no doubt.
Like he really care about David. Where's David at? Where's he at? So I can cut off his head.
But even look how he's suspecting that he's still keeping the righteousness of God, which makes it, as insult to injury. Well, he's not. He must not be here for a good reason. So this makes it even worse. Like, why are you coming after his brother then? You know? What are you doing?
He wasn't going to kill him at the feast. kill him. He was gonna kill him.
He probably put to the bathroom and tried to cut him.
Because if he did, right, it'd be unclean, right? Is that what you said there?
Nah, I'm saying he would
Dead
kill
body?
him. Nah, Gabar said, yeah, he was out to kill him. Yes, that is true, according to the story, but he wasn't gonna kill him there at the feast, right? Too many witnesses.
But he is the king, though.
Yeah, but he still wasn't gonna just kill him.
He threw a spear at him with people around. But he was playing this instrument.
Yeah, but he wasn't gonna kill him there. I think it was just legitimate concern that he wasn't there at the feast that he usually is. He's always intended. But I don't think it was specifically because he wanted to kill him right there. Of course, he wouldn't be aware where he's at because he's looking for him, but not specifically to kill him at the feast.
I mean, it's tough to say one way or the other, but I would probably lean more toward what the bar is saying because, like you said, when you do read down, not only does he get mad at Jonathan, but it tells that he threw a javelin at him, and Jonathan put two and two together because he dodged it, right? But then he realized that he's throwing it at me, but it's really due to hatred and anger at David. So that evil spirit was really troubling to where he would go even to those lengths. It's like you said, even if somebody has malice against their brother, they would at least have some sort of attack with it. Whatever evil spirit was tormenting him, and however David was being received, it was like, yeah, he really had it out for him. So, I would hope what you're saying he wouldn't do, but I don't know. That's kind of one of the reasons why he laid low right for those 3 days.
On the second verse there, how many days did they celebrate the new moon? They said the second days he was still missing at his seat.
Right, because they normally sat down to eat anyway, even if it wasn't a feast. That's what I was touching on a second ago.
And if you read verse 31, it seemed like he wanted to kill him right there.
Right, because he's telling his son Jonathan, yeah, as long as he's alive, that means that you won't have a seat after me. You won't be able to inherit my crown. That's what he was telling Jonathan. But Jonathan, it wasn't even on that time, right? Since him and David were so close anyway. It wasn't even a thing for him. But we could definitely, go into that more if we want, like in the class. We want to go into more of that story. But you definitely read about him throwing a javelin at Jonathan, and then Jonathan put two and two together that he realized it was intended for David. Because that even makes it even show you even how King Saul was really out of his right mind. Not only telling his son Jonathan, don't you know that you be the one to inherit the kingship after me? Then whether he's thinking about David or not, to then throw a javelin at your son. I mean, it's a good thing he was paying attention, because now you're about to kill your own heir to make it even easier for David. So just to add once again, more insult to him. See, that evil spirit was something. It's one of those things where you get you just to think about it and say, man, I don't want to have something like that afflicted. But going into verse 27, it says, and it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said to Jonathan his son, whoever cometh not the son of Jesse to meet, neither yesterday nor today. You know what? Since we're here, I guess we can read down since we're talking about this. Verse 28, it says, and Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. Right? That's what they agreed to earlier, right? To give him that story, which was true, but there's more to that story. Remember, we're talking about warfare, which means you gotta move with cunning, right? It says, and he said, let me go, I pray thee, for our family have to sacrifice in the city, and my brother, he hath commanded me to be there. And now, if I have found favor in thine eyes, let me get away, I pray thee, and see my brethren. Which you would go do, but remember, that's not really the full reasons, because he knows Saul's got it out for me, right? He's got it out to take me out. And, then have Jonathan kind of peep game himself so you can kind of see what he sees. I pray thee and see my brethren, therefore he cometh not unto the king's table. It says, then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and said unto him, thou son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to be to thine own confusion, and unto the confusion of thy mother's nakedness? So realized, he acknowledged, I know you're close with David. Don't you know this is against you for you choosing him? But look, he's calling them names, right? The son of a perverse, rebellious woman. But that's your wife, right? You bear him through her, right? You calling her out, right?
Argue with his wife too.
It's like you chose her, right? I didn't have to be here. You want to, make fun of her, to come at me. And it says, to thine own confusion and to the confusion of thy mother's nakedness, right? As if she has something to be shameful about. 31, for as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore, now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die. So there it is. So, whether he does it there or not, he's made his intention clear that he's to be executed. Now, from a king's standpoint, you can try to say, oh, it's execution. Now, according to the law of God, yeah, some things warrant execution. Right? I know we had that discussion earlier about, oh, he murdered so-and-so, and I was like, I don't know about the word murder. Let's use the word execute, right? We were reading Kings earlier in the Sabbath service, right? But now we know in the case of David, he hasn't done anything that's worthy of execution. 32, and Jonathan answered Saul his father and said unto him, wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? Legitimate question, right? What did he do wrong? Here's the part I was talking about earlier. And Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David. Just by him asking the question, well, is it justified? Why should we kill him? Why should we kill him? What has he done? Saul saw in his confusion, his own confusion, as though Jonathan was taken up for him. And I'll stop here at 34. It says, so Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and did eat no meat the second day of the month. For he was grieved for David because his father had done him shame. See that? Kind of makes me think earlier too, we read in the Sabbath service about, the son shall be put to death for the father's sin and vice versa, right? Where we see Saul being one way, but then we see Jonathan being another way, right? We know it ended up being Jonathan's fate to die still in battle, and it being pretty much a curse to fall upon the house of Saul. Even his daughter Michal, right, to not have any children, being another judgment, which that will come later on in the story. But it just shows too that while your sins can fall upon those that come after you and your posterity, at the same time, it's still up to those that come after you, as far as your children and children's children. It's still up to them to choose whether or not they're going to follow the Most High God or not, even though they might be born into difficult circumstances due to your choices. So in the end, we all have a choice. We're going to be judged for our own sin. So yeah, that was I usually stop at 27. We went down to 34 to get the extra story. And then jumping forward, we go to Chronicles. Chronicles. Chapter 2 and verse 4. So 2nd Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 4, just going down to Solomon when he was reigning over Israel. He was setting up the or having, I guess not, they didn't start it yet, but having a mind to actually build the temple unto the Most High with the raw materials that David left behind, and to work with Hiram, king of Tyre, to do it. He tells him this in 2nd Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 4. It reads, behold, I build an house to the name of the Lord my God, or Yahweh my power. Or in the Hebrew, Yahweh Elohayim, that's how you would say it. It's dedicated to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual showbread, like we read about earlier in Numbers 28, and for the burnt offerings, morning and evening. So that's the offering we do each day, right? Then it says on the Sabbath, so there's a certain set of offerings we do every Sabbath. It says, and on the new moons, like we're keeping right now, we read those specifically in Numbers 28. And on the solemn feast of the Lord or Yahweh, our power. This is an ordinance forever to Israel. See that? So this is something that we're always supposed to do. Always supposed to keep the new moons. And it doesn't matter how much time has gone by where we forgot to. If we know better, we're supposed to do better. Just as you always would hear that saying in the world. How much more true is that when we apply it to the truth? And I'll jump to the scripture in Isaiah I was talking about earlier. Second to last verse in Isaiah, letting us know that this was a feast, not only that was always to be kept, but it's something that's going to be kept in the future, in the kingdom. It's going to be established in the earth. Isaiah 66 and 23. So us keeping a new moon now, we're going back to what we used to do, but at the same time, we're ahead of the curve because it's what the nation's going to be compelled to do. Not just the nations, but all of creation is going to be compelled to keep the feast of the Lord holy, namely the new moon. So we're talking about that now. That's why it says this. Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 23, it reads, it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. See that? So from one new moon and from one Sabbath, this has not happened yet, even to this day in 2024, so-called. Let us know this is something that's going to happen in the future, in the kingdom. Something of old that we don't do as much anymore. When we look at the world, look at our people, and these religions, you don't hear the new moon being talked about like that. Just like now, everyone knows about, especially here in the West, everyone knows about Christmas and Easter. And in North America, they know about, what do you call it? July 4th, right? Sad Dependence Day. They know about Thanksgiving Day, right? Which they call Thanksgiving. Everyone knows about these. But you ask about the Sabbath and the new moon, folks scratch their head. Well, when's the Sabbath? That's a Sunday, right? Well, my Sabbath is on this day, right? No one knows the Lord's Sabbath like that. And the few that do, they oftentimes are doing it according to a false religion. Or the new moon. Oh yeah, new moon. Yes, that's when the moon doesn't show any light, right? Yeah, I remember learning that when I was a kid, right? When I took earth science or whatever, or took basic astronomy for school. But that's pretty much it. Now we don't think about it like that. I just like how it looks. That's all they know. They don't really know the deeper importance behind it.
What verse was that again?
Isaiah 66 and 23.
So 66.
Yeah, second to last verse in Isaiah. So it's going to be known in the earth to keep this, like it's known to keep these folly days that people crave about, that people cry home about now. It's not just what we do in the West, but even you go into the Middle East, Far East, right? Africa, other continents, you'll see them celebrating certain things according to their ideologies, their religions, celebrating their false gods and their false prophets. Their celebrations they do too. And they oftentimes bring them to America. So you see people celebrating these things on social media, like, oh yeah, this is something that Islam does. Or it's something that we do in Hinduism. This is something that we do in Buddhism. Or this is something we do in this or that, right? But we look forward to this day when it says Sabbaths and new moons, all flesh come to worship before God. Because even the heathen are going to resist, even after the destruction, after Christ comes back. After it's known that we are the chosen of God, and there's no one and nothing else better to follow than us, you're still going to have resistance. So once again, this being a future prophecy. I made this reference earlier. This is in Jeremiah. So go to 24. Sorry, I have to write this down. 24. 66, 23. All right, so Jeremiah chapter 6. Sorry about that. And I'm just going to read verse 16. Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 16, where it reads, once again, Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 16, thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein. And ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Right? So Most High is compelling us, right? Then and now, to ask for the old paths, wherein is the good way. Right? What did we used to do before in ancient times that was good? When we talk about good, we're not talking about, relatively good. Like, oh, what's good? I'm good. Like people use very frivolously in the world, they use the word love very frivolously, not from a righteous context. This good is talking about the goodness of God, right? Which we can't have God's goodness without having his law or having his commandments. This verse you can link up with this to show that real quick. You can just write down Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 6. Actually, chapter 4. So Proverbs chapter 4. In verse 2. Proverbs chapter 4 in verse 2, where it reads, for I give you a good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. Okay? So a good doctrine. You go into doctrine. Doctrines means a set of rules and regulations to be adhered to. But it likens it unto the Most High's law. You can link this with Romans chapter 7 and verse 12 in the New Testament. In case folks want to say, oh, that law, we don't deal with that anymore. So that new moon, I don't know why that you keep talking about that new moon stuff. But now you go to Romans chapter 7 in verse 12. Revelations. Romans chapter 7 and verse 12, it says, wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. So the law and the commandment showed to be both holy and just and good. You can't have God's goodness without having the law, statutes, commandments. That's the main point. Driving that here. And then we'll get the famous verse in the Apocrypha, as well as the New Testament. And then after that, we'll get into our particular code. Code/system. I figure it'd be kind of pertinent since we know it's like a hot topic right now. This time, not this year, but this time of year. And they started a lot earlier than usual. It used to be the October surprise. I think got bumped up to like May. But Ecclesiasticus chapter 43. Ecclesiasticus chapter 43. We'll read 6 to 8. Ecclesiasticus 43 and 6. It says, He is the Most High, you read above, made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. The Most High made the moon to be a declaration of times. We touched on earlier, by counting the moons and the cycles of the moon, we can see what time of month that we're in. And what time of year that we're in by counting the number of months to figure out what season that we're in, to know what type of temperature we should be dealing with, whatever biome that we're in as far as the earth, whatever tropic that we're in. Because as you go up higher up in the tropics on the earth, the climate can get different, right? As far as summer months, winter months, etc. But nonetheless, the moon will continue to go through her phases no matter where you're at in the earth. It says in verse 7, for the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreaseth at her perfection. Like we were saying before, by counting the moons that go by, which by counting a moon, you count the moon as it goes through its phases. Right now, it's fully black. After about a week's time, we'll have what they call the first half. So this time next week, it'll be the first half, meaning the right side of the moon will shine forth her light. 2 weeks from now, it'll be a full moon. 3 weeks, it'll be what they call the last half, or the left side of the moon. And in about 4 weeks, give or take a day or two, then we'll have another new moon, right? So that'll be when the next new moon is. We'll be coming into the 6th new moon. But that's the 4 main phases you can look at to say, okay, how much time has gone by? About a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Just so you have an idea so that you're ready, right? And that you're in tune with the Most High as far as how he set his creation up to move. To be in tune with the Most High, be aligned unto his wisdom. So it says, from the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreaseth her perfection. It says the month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing. It's going to do right now, between now and the full moon. It's going to increase as the days go by. It says, being an instrument of the armies above, talking about the stars. Because remember, the Most High as a host, he has the stars as a host. He also has the Elohim as his host, or the gods, the angels, so-called. We're also considered God's hosts as well, depending on the context. But this host here, or these armies, are talking about the stars. So being an instrument of the armies above, it says shining in the firmament of heaven, right? So that's what we look up to see them. So Ecclesiasticus 43, 6 to 8. Also Colossians chapter 2, verse 16. Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. So Colossians 2 and 16, it reads, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or the new moon, or the Sabbath days. So Paul writing to our people that were in Colossae, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink. In other words, when it comes to things eaten and things drinking, let's make sure they're lawful. Even when it comes to doing the offerings, which we don't, we're not going to do now since we're going through Christ at this point. But we're not supposed to eat anything that's unlawful. And if it is lawful, we're not supposed to eat too much of it, right? As far as being a glutton. If we're drinking something, it should be something that's lawful, right? And we're not supposed to drink so much of it where we become drunken, right? But then there's things that you're just not supposed to eat or drink at all, too, right? Like certain unclean meats that aren't clean animals. Or drink, the law talks about not drinking blood of any kind. So no one should judge you on those things. And you should know when it comes to eating and drinking what to do. It says, or in respect of an holy day, right? So anytime a feast day comes up, like we had first fruits not too long ago, no man should judge us in that. I mean, we should know what to do when that time comes around. Know where to go in the scripture to speak on it. or the new moon, which we're keeping right now, which we should know about. It says, or of the Sabbath days, right? Like we kept earlier before the sun went down. We should know about that, know when it comes in, know what to do, and how to function when the Sabbath comes in. We see, even for some of our people, they our people that have been called into this truth, there's been some questioning when it comes to the milk of the word, when it comes to keeping the basic holy days and how to go about doing it, what we can and can't do on holy days and on Sabbaths and things like that, and when the month begins and ends, right? These crucial things that, regardless of branch in Christ, we should agree on. We find now that we have supposed new understandings about, which we really have to address and go, all right, where's the proof on that? And go into the scriptures to see if that's true or if that's just a doctrine. And we could say one thing when it comes to the meat of the scriptures, when it comes to the milk, that should be something that's straightforward. But now, verse 17, which are a shadow of things to come. Remember we read in Isaiah 66 and 23? So these verses go together. So even Paul is talking about these things being a shadow of things to come. Meaning what? In the earth, it's going to be known to do these things, right? No man will have to judge us in that day because, like it tells us in Jeremiah 31, verse 31 to 34, also Hebrews 8, 8 to 12, and to get them. But it talks about a new covenant the Most High is going to make with our two kingdoms, which today are being referred to as descendants of slaves as well as indigenous peoples, found mostly here in the Americas, right? It says the new covenant is going to be made with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, to where the Most High is going to write the law on our inward parts, and how we're not going to do like we're doing now, going out there on the Sabbath days, even days on the week and teaching, bringing up the scriptures, bringing out prophecies about end times, things like that, letting our people know that they're the real Jew, and to know God. Here's how to know God. There's going to come a time when we won't have to do that anymore. So yeah, Jeremiah 31, verse 31 to 35. Also, Hebrews chapter 8, verse 8 to 12. I'll just read one of those just so that we have an idea. Just so that we know who this new covenant is for. Showing us that not only is the new moon still supposed to be kept, but that the Most High, even in the kingdom, is going to be dealing with his people and the descendants of his people in the earth now, not anybody that claims to believe on Jesus, right? Which the Jesus that people claim is a false Christ. He's not the real Christ, who Christ himself even warned his disciples about, right? About many false prophets and many men that should come in my name saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive men. So he even gave us the preview that they're going to be frauds out there. So let's read about this new covenant, right? Because we're under the New Testament, which is like a will. You can see a last will and testament, that's Christ. But this new covenant hasn't come yet. So let's read about this new covenant that hasn't come yet. So Hebrews chapter 8, in verse 8, it reads, for finding fault with them, he said, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. You go to Jeremiah 31, 31. It talks about this, right? It's the same quote that's being quoted here. It says in verse 9, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers or ancestors in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continue not in my covenant, and I regard them not, saith the Lord. It says, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I'll put my law in their mind and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. So in this day, in this new covenant, Moses is going to put his law in our hearts and our minds to where we'll just know what the law is. It won't have to be a thing like we've read, like I'm about to read here in verse 11. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord. That's what we're doing right now. Going out there and fishing, going out there and teaching, right? Like we're doing through a medium like this, or whether it be over the phone, right, or face to face, right? They shall not teach everyone his neighbor and everyone his brother, saying, know the Lord. For all shall know me from the least to the greatest. Because remember, you're going to have the least in the kingdom of God, but you're going to have the greatest in the kingdom of God as well. And remember, Christ cleared this up. You read in the Gospels, right? You read Matthew 5:19. Christ said, whosoever shall break one of these commandments and shall teach men so, the same shall be called the least in the kingdom, right? It's talking about the 2/3 of our people that are going to be in the kingdom, but are going to have to be destroyed before they can come into the kingdom through the children of those that do and teach them, that shall be called the greatest in the kingdom of God, right? So those that do and teach them will be the 1/3 of Israel. Those that are chosen by God, they're going to be called the greatest in the kingdom. See, if you want, you can reference Matthew 5:19. That's what I'm quoting right now. So we compel our people to be the greatest. And to do that, you got to do and teach the commandments, right? That's out of Christ's own mouth. There's no way around that. And that's how you're truly good, which you read the scriptures about that earlier, right? As far as trying to find the good way. Verse 12, it says in Hebrews 8:12, for I'll be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. See that? So the Most High will give us a pass, right? On the sins we committed all throughout these lifetimes we had, throughout these ages, throughout these days. In that day when Christ comes back, and the Most High sends him back, and he reestablishes Israel and tops of the mountains, on top of the hills, right? That's where this will be manifested, right? The Most High is going to be merciful to our unrighteousness. So he's looking for us to willingly choose him right now, keep his commandments right here and now, when it's not popular. See, in the kingdom, the new moon, the Sabbath day is going to be popular. Right now, they're not popular. Most are looking to see how many of us are going to choose to do the right thing, even when it's not popular, like it is now, to deal with righteousness. So, take righteous humility. I don't say righteous pride. I would say take humility in that you're able to do these things now. And that others that are out there, whether it be family, friends, associates, even strangers, can't do it. Don't take that for granted, right? Make the most of it. Because the day is at hand. Speaking of the day being at hand when it comes to the world and the powers that be, since the election stuff has kind of been a hot topic as far as what's going on with that, I decided to kind of showcase this code or this system that's kind of been around, but it seems to always kind of come up as a topic anytime we have every 4 years United States. But I have in the notes for this video, I put what these 13 keys are. Kind of made a little joke in the title where I said the Red House says the White House, right? But you know, he starts to associate things with himself as white, but we know really, according to scriptures, he's red. There's nobody white on the earth to say there's nobody black on the earth. But a wise one of Esau, I think his name is Alan Lichtman, but he's the one that pretty much did the research. And he says pretty much from the 80s up until now, he's going to use and refine these set of questions, kind of arranged as like a questionnaire or like a code to look at to say, okay, depending on which way these questions are answered, this is going to factor into who more than likely is going to be chosen. I say it that way on purpose. Chosen as the president, right? And they say since the mid 80s up until now, he's been right. I think he's only been wrong one time. And he say even that way that can even be explained away. So I want to talk about those principles that he set up that we can look at as far as looking at the script for how they claim that the president is chosen, right? Because I've heard that expression before too in the world. They say the president is selected, it's not elected. It's not so much about popularity, it's more about a bloodline. You'd be surprised the same way that we are selected is really how they're actually selected on the left-hand side too. It's just done more so behind closed doors. But they have an external script they put out there to say, this is the factors that go into how a person's elected. And there's many questions we can ask that are very clear, just based on what you might learn in civics. We might have asked these questions as children if we grew up here in America. Okay, well, teach. Okay, it says the electoral college works like this, and then you have the popular vote and the electoral votes. Which one decides the president, right? There's certain questions you can ask where you'll never really get a straight answer or answer that makes sense, right? Or when we go into past presidents, even up to this point, you've got their own scholars have done this research and said, well, we look at all these past presidents, they've all been related somehow, right? They've all been connected to a certain family or certain families, even families connected to the royalty in England, which according to history, they said that we were supposed to have broken away from King George, right? It became our own empire, right? And that, we're going to go away from, the traditions of Europe dealing with, monarchies and things like that and royal bloodlines, yet and still, all the presidents seem to have some sort of connection to that same bloodline, right? When they do the family tree on these folks. Even the ones you would look at and on the surface, you would say, oh, that's a person of color. You look into their background, you realize, oh man, they're connected too. Even certain members of the royal family who have been married into the royal family, you would have said, oh man, how did they get into the royal family? When you do a background on them, same thing. Same thing, you look into certain actors and actresses. So what they do and what they say are two different things. But I'll even take on what they say when it comes to, this ritual, if you will, when it comes to how they determine the president. So this professor, Alan Lichtman, put together these principles. Like I said, I put them in the description when to look at them. But if you just put in the name, the 13 keys to the White House, it'll see what will come up, where they'll point out these different factors that you look at, and based on whatever president has made the primary for the red team and the blue teams, they're the two horns of the dragon, Revelations 13. The independent one, you see how many times they try to get a third party here in the United States, and how even if that person gets a popular following, something happens to where he or she gets the rug pulled from underneath them, right? And that's part of prophecy too, because, and I just made a reference to it, but you read Revelations 13, we get that real quick. Revelation chapter 13. In verse 11. I was reading down to 13, but this particular prophecy is talking about what we call America today. But it reads, Revelations 13 and 11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. It says, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, right? So the symbolism of this vision John is having is significant when it says having two horns like a lamb, right? These two horns being representative of the two major parties, right? That we see most people claim to be part of in especially in America, right? They either choose, we call them the red team and the blue team. Some call them the Democrats and the Republicans, right? Them just being psychopathic gang factions, right? By the time it's all said and done. One uses an elephant, another one uses a donkey, right? To where anytime they have a third party that says, look, I have another way to solve the problems of America, right? I want to set these things up. They always find a way to, like I said, get that candidate out of the counting, right? Get them out of the running. You always want to make sure you filter into one of these two groups, either the Democrats or the Republicans, But it's funny because as we're going to read, it's very similar to a beast that came before in ancient time. Same nation, but under another name. Verse 12, it says, spake like a dragon. Think about a dragon or a serpent has like a forked tongue, right? So it speaks two ways, right? It says one thing, but it means something else, right? You know, that symbolism has been used a lot as far as a forked tongue, right? It says in verse 12, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, which caused the earth, and then that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Who's this first beast whose deadly wound was healed? This is talking about the Roman Empire. One of those 7 heads and other visions that the prophets had, John included, right? If we look at the Roman style of government, it was very similar to the styles of government Esau has now. Not just America either. You look to the KGB, the Kingdom of Great Britain, you look to Spain, France, other countries, you'll see similar government structures, similar symbols used, et cetera, et cetera. But you go back to ancient Rome, we had the 2 main groups, the patricians and the plebeians, right? Those are kind of similar to what we have today with your senators and your House of Representatives. There's many different parallels you can look at when you look at the governments of today that Esau has, and they go back to Rome. Even in Great Britain, they had the House of Lords and the House of Commons, right? 2 groups, one serving the common public, the other one serving, the more elite level class people. That's what the patricians were in the Roman times, or the elite of society, and the plebeians were those that represented the people of the common folk, right? And we talk about this a lot, especially when we go through the Maccabees. We read about our history with the conflict with the Greeks. We read about those parallels a lot. So let's talk about the Roman Empire when it says the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Because Babylon fell, Rome fell, but then it came back through the Renaissance that we see happening throughout Europe. You see the French, the Spanish, the Germans, the English, all setting themselves back up after falling out of power, and then trying to take on the Greco-Roman ideology, right? Even figures like Napoleon, fashioned himself as like a Roman emperor, where they would have statues made of him. He had his hand in his cover gun, right? And you see statues of him made like they would make a Caesar. You look even today in the White House, you see they have different paintings and statues set up of past presidents. Even throughout DC, District of Columbia, set up in similar fashion, the same pillars, the same way they sit, or even sometimes almost being depicted as though they're like some sort of god, right? Similar to how the Romans would do with their Caesars, with their leaders, right? And another one I throw out there a lot too is how is it that we're in the modern era, right? Rome fell so long ago, but then you look at law books for laws that we see even to this day, you've got more Latin words in there than English words, right? I can get a Black's Law Dictionary and find all types of Latin terminology, right? That's not by accident. This is all tied into this prophecy here. And finally in 13, it says, and he doeth great wonders so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. I'll just stop there for now. For what that's going into, I know just had this movie not too long ago. Was it Oppenheimer? Going to this man who's been credited to, getting the atomic bomb up and running, right? Him and Einstein, right? But him playing a crucial factor in getting the designs ready and designed and built so they can use this as a weapon, right? So this was prophesied even here. It's prophesied other places too. But that's what this is alluding to where we did through the power of the Most High, whereas he did through the power of the Most High on the left-hand side, right? I think it's their own ingenuity, yet they have the devil on their side to build these things. Because these things really aren't evil, right? As far as, energy. But we see how those same things as far as nuclear power can be used to actually destroy. As they'll take anything and make it into a weapon. just like Isaac said, by the sword you shall live. So taking anything that they make with the Most High's help, realizing it or not, or anything that's a part of God's creation, and weaponizing it. That's all true to form for Esau, Edom, and how the Most High made them. So rather than just deal with the whole politics piece of things, as far as there only being two factions that are going to have any type of real say when it comes to their government style. So you're always going to have those two groups, right? As far as the red team, the blue team, the House of Reps, the Senate, right? Those are the two horns. But they're always going to speak like a dragon, meaning they'll say one thing and then do something else, right? So keep all those these prophecies in mind, even as we look at how Esau might try to explain how their own government works, like we see here, as far as Alan Rickman and these principles that he outlines here, which even the fact that there's 13 total, since we know Esau, he deals, we deal with numbers on the right-hand side, certain numbers, they have certain numbers they deal with on the left-hand side, especially when it comes to their secret societies like Freemasonry and Rosicrucians, etc. That number 13 is one that they use a lot too. Even look on the back of the dollar bill where you see the eagle. If you know the Most High said they would exalt themselves as. Had the eagles holding the 12 olive branches and the 12 arrows. So I even wouldn't be surprised if this professor, who I think he works at a prestigious university, I wouldn't be surprised if he himself wasn't initiated. And he's just putting out these 13 keys as, you know, a means of, oh, this is something I just did, just do the research, just do the studying, you know, political patterns, just that and the third, when really he's just adept. He's just aware of the ritual. What are some principles he talks about? If you look in the description in the video, you'll see here, number 1, party mandate. And just keep this in mind. Anytime you see that word incumbent in these principles he's outlined, incumbent just means whoever is currently in charge. Like we see, usually it'll be the blue team will be in charge for 8 years, or two presidential terms. Then they'll give it over to the red team to be in charge, oftentimes for 8 years, if they can re-elect that person that was in power before, which actually goes to these factors as well. So they mention here, after the midterm elections, the incumbent party, the current party, they hold more seats in the U.S. House of Reps than after the previous midterm elections. So you look at that factor. It also mentions no primary contest. There are no serious contests for the incumbent party nomination, meaning whoever's supposed to run against them for their same party, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, there's nobody that can really get with them, or that's going to have the same amount of influence as that person that's already there. The current person seeking re-election, that's number 3. The incumbent party candidate is the sitting president, right? That's going into you being re-elected for a second term, which happened a lot. Like we saw happen with Clinton in the 90s and Bush in the 2000s. No third party. There was no thing a third party or independent campaign. See that? Which speaks to that prophecy. 2 horns only. We don't allow a third party. We'll allow you to do your thing. And we'll make sure we'll use our media and other tools and tricks to make sure that you don't have a chance against either the red team or the blue team. Just want to make sure we jockey that party between the two of us. Then I like 5 and 6. Strong short-term and strong long-term economy. The economy is not in recession during the election campaign. Or when it says long-term economy, strong long-term economy, real per capita, which means per head or per person. Economic growth during the term equals or exceeds mean growth during the previous 2 terms, right? So, like that politician coined that phrase, it's the economy, right? Or usually they say it's the economy stupid, right? So that's always a factor, right? They'll always look to the president to fix something that was never a part of his or her job responsibility when it comes to fixing the economy, right? we know if anything, the Federal Reserve Bank has a better handle on that when it comes to, I think we were talking about this earlier today, when it comes to interest rates, when it comes to money supply, right? The best that the president can do is just advocate for or execute policy that's written by another branch that he or she isn't even in. So those factors are considered. So pretty much, if you go through these list of 13 things, the idea is if they check off a certain amount of boxes, usually over half, like I think it might be like a 2/3 margin of these options. What this Lichtman says is that the likelihood that this person will become president is much higher, right? And according to him using these this questionnaire or these principles, he's only been wrong one time. It was due to some change late in the game, right? It was like one of those things where it was on the cusp. So that's like his claim to fame when it comes to these. What else do we have? Major policy change. The incumbent or the current administration affects major changes in national policy, right? So some sort of law that's passed that affects something big or something that's very influential, whether it be like healthcare, whether it be some sort of tax or some sort of law regarding probably something dealing with the amendments to the Constitution, something big like that. No social unrest. There was no substantial social unrest during the term, right? Which I don't know last time we've seen no social unrest during the presidency. No scandal. The incumbent or the current administration is untainted by a major scandal. So no Iran-Contra, no, Lewinsky situation, right? Monica Lewinsky situation. Just thinking about some past scandals during my lifetime. I can even think of some before my lifetime, like the Watergate scandal, right? Going back to Nixon. What else do we have? No foreign military failure. The incumbent or current administration suffers no major failure in foreign or military affairs. Right? That's going to be a tough one, right? And it's funny with that thing because that oftentimes it just goes into how they might sell it on the media. They might sell it and say, oh, we won. Look, we beat them, right? Mission accomplished. We caught the terrorists. But then even that is staged. And oftentimes we'll save that for the fourth year when it's time for re-election, these major events that take place. What else do we have? Major foreign military success. Charismatic incumbent, meaning the person who's in power at that certain point is charismatic or a national hero, right? And then finally, uncharismatic challenger, meaning the person that's challenging them in the opposite party. So we got Democrats now. That means the Republicans. If we have Republican, that means the Democrat is not charismatic or is not a national hero, right? So the national hero could be, this person came up with some idea, or he might have some sort of. They might be the founder of some company that came up with some idea that is revolutionary, or it could be they could be an ex-military person that got some what do you call it? Some award like the Silver Star, the Medal of Honor, or the Purple Heart, what have you, right? I remember that was a big deal when it was John Kerry and Bush. They were both bonesmen. They both went to the same frat at Yale. One was blue team, one was red team. And that was a big thing that John Kerry kept talking about back in 2004, was that he got his Purple Hearts, Purple Hearts, Purple Hearts. Look at me and my Purple Hearts. He didn't become president, but he definitely became Secretary of State, right? So he's able to find his place. So these are the factors that he mentioned, which I think are kind of interesting, because what these pretty much tell us is the way they set the stage for who they want anyway, right? When it comes to how they select, they'll groom them from, a young age, right? Some might even say, according to some research, that go as far back as even when they were born. Because we know when it comes to Esau, he's into numerology and astrology and things like that, especially their elite. When it comes to selecting figures that are born in certain places at certain times. And we talked about this before too. It's not by accident that the vice president's house since the late 70s has been adjoined, or it's one observatory away, which is adjoined to the Naval Observatory, right? Because he selects the stargaze, just like the Hamites when they were in power. cross-reference Isaiah 47, another class, but it's all there. So I just mentioned those factors, but like I said, they're all there. I wanted to play it here, but what I'll do is I'll just post a link to a video. I just did a search to see if they put out something recently about it, but I'll post it in the chat if you guys want to check it out on YouTube. But this supposed wise man of Esau revisiting his revisiting his 13 keys to see currently who would be a more likely candidate, whether it be Kamala Harris or whether it be Donald Trump, as the one to seal the deal. I think we're on YouTube. I'm going to post a YouTube link. I know it shouldn't be an issue. Sometimes in YouTube, you post a link in chat or in a message, it might give an issue. And I'll even add the link too in the description here, so you guys can check that out. We'll read these scriptures real quick that just deal with having friends, especially when it comes to having friends and riches, since we know that's how a lot of politics works. So real quick, go to Proverbs. We just give you these proverbs that deal with this. But Proverbs chapter 14. And verse 20. And you can read that over to Sean.
Okay. Proverbs 14 and 20. The poor is hated even of his own neighbor, but the rich have many friends.
So it says the poor is hated even of his own neighbors, but the rich have many friends, right? So when we look at how a lot of these campaigns go, right? Oftentimes their success is tied to either how much independent wealth they have through, self-made wealth or inherited wealth, or friends they may have in high places when it comes to colleges they may have gone to, universities they may have attended, affiliations with certain nonprofit organizations, right? Certain research and development organizations, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see that influence will be there. And sometimes you might have this in the form of a politician or someone that a politician will seek resources from or donations from, right? Like our Fortune 5, Fortune 100 type figures that, I don't need to name them. You guys know what I'm talking about. Also in Proverbs 18 and 24, if you read that, y'all can up. Proverbs 18 and 24.
Proverbs chapter 18, verse 24. A man that had friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
Right. So now we look at these public figures, right? Especially in the case of politicians, presidents on down to governors and even mayors, right? They have to show themselves friendly, meaning whoever they're friends with, especially if they're rich and wealthy when it comes to campaign contributions and donations, they got to show themselves friendly to whatever they're into, whatever their cause is. To where you have websites that expose a lot of this, like I think it's called Open Secret, opensecrets.org, where they pretty much take this public data and arrange it into like database. We can kind of search the website and it'll filter out the info. And when you do certain searches, you know what to search on when it comes to the federal elections. I think they do federal. They do some states. I'm not sure they do city level, but they definitely do federal level. But the thing that's so funny, we look at those elections, whether it was 2020 or 2016 or 2012, what have you. What you'll notice is certain companies are always the top contributors, whether it's the Democrats or Republicans, whether it's big pharma, whether it's big oil or energy, whether it's defense contractors. It's like you're saying, big conglomerates, tech firms, tech conglomerates. They're usually the top ones. You'll see these same big companies, these same top donators. They're pretty much hedge their bets on both sides of the fence. You go to 2020 and see, wow, this defense contractor gave the same, gave a whole bunch of money to Biden. They also gave a same amount of money to Trump too, right? And so from their angle, it's just like, whoever loses don't matter to us. We win. So yeah, you got to show yourself friendly. So it's hard to really get a politician, especially at that level, to truly represent our interests, because the friends that matter to them, they got to be friendly to us, namely those corporations, those Fortune 100s that are their top campaign contributors. Those folks can, put two and two together and understand what I just said. But yet, every 4 years, they get caught up in the, this whole circus of, my team's better than yours, and my candidate's better for reason X, Y, Z. So you just forget what you can clearly see with your own eyes just by looking logically, or that you could pretty much look at and make sense of it on a basic level. You're talking about just, local politics, even running for like class president of high school. It's the same mechanics. You just have more factors involved, but it's the same mechanics as far as, influencing others and, saying the right words and, making the right gestures, which really has changed. Or what really is pulling the strings here. Proverbs 19:4, Manasha, we read that one. Baba Busha. Proverbs 19:4.
Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 4. Wealth makes many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor.
See that? This is wealth maketh many friends, but we know with those friends, oftentimes there's a contingency, right? But people love those that have power, influence, right? They want to be a part of. They want to be in the same room of. They want to be, invited to by said person, right? It says, but the poor is separated from his neighbor, right? You see someone that's poor and that's doing too well, you're gonna look the other way, right? You don't even want to be associated, right? You're afraid that they might come to you and ask you for something, and either due to your own selfishness or due to your own unwillingness to become shameful because you may want to give but can't, or not able to give but can't. They'll do an about face and say, "Oh, I don't know," or "Don't talk to me," for one of those reasons I just listed. So let's just not forget these factors that are involved, just even on a physical level, when it comes to wisdom behind, friends and wealth, and how the two can go together, but also how the two can clash, especially when it comes to this game that we're compelled to play in when it comes to these 4-year presidencies, and even the 2-year Senate races that we see every 2 years in between as well. Because they've been talking about that so much, especially with Kamala Harris saying, "Look how much money she raised in the last couple of weeks. Wow, a record number of money being raised." And then you got people asking, logical questions. What about her policy? I went to her website, looked at the website. I don't see any policy there. All I see there is we got to raise money because we have to beat the other guy, right? That's like the main focus. And then people say, "Oh, wow, what? That's smart for not to talk about policy right now. It's smart for us to go into, raising money and looking at Trump as an other." So they kind of get locked into the whole politics game and then trying to be, savvy when it comes to, "Oh, wow, that's why she did that. That's a power move." But in the end, we're going to be the ones suffering. Us, peons, us middle class and down are going to be the ones suffering for the next 4 years, right? When she gets in power or when he gets in power, right? Because it was all at your expense anyway, to sell you up, to sell you a dream. I'm about to say if you know what to create. Profanity. And then I'll read this one, which should be a reminder, but something we have to read just in case we forget. but this is also in Proverbs. This is Proverbs 22:7. Proverbs 22:7. And then I'll wrap here unless anyone else has any other scriptures. Because I know we have a class we're going to be doing going forward, which goes more into the Most High being the one that ultimately controls things when it comes to who's ruling and who isn't. But even on the lower level, as far as the rationale of politics, we can even use the Proverbs to show which way influence is going to go. This is Proverbs 22:7. It reads, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." Right? Think about the curses in Deuteronomy 28. Most High said, "We keep the commandments." The Most High is going to what? Cause us to be the head, cause the other nations to be the tail. He said, we break the law, he's going to cause the nations to be the head and us to be the tail. Once again, if we kept the law, we would lend to many nations and not borrow. If we broke the law, we would have to borrow. But those nations that will rule over us, they would be the ones to lend. And you see that we're in the latter situation as opposed to the former, all due to our transgression, which makes us servants to the nations. What does it say in Ecclesiastes? I've seen servants upon horses, right? So the servants upon horses are these other nations, especially Esau, right? Being on horseback means you have what? Authority, right? When you ride high. That's the role the nations play right now, in contrast to us. But it's never a double. It's never the same thing for both of us. It's either we're the head, they're the tail, or the other way around. Because when the kingdom comes in, it's going to be reversed. And the verse I was making a reference to, and I mentioned Proverbs 22:7. I just made a reference to Ecclesiastes. I'll read it real quick. Ecclesiastes. Chapter 10. I'll read 6 and 7. Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 6 and also verse 7. It says, "Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place." So things that are foolish, things that aren't of any profit or little profit, right? They don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like we see our attention being drawn so much into this election and how this election will go, as far as the time and energy it takes to just kind of wrap your head around a lot of these things, which at least I like from this angle, even though it's still, from the enemy, it at least makes it a bit more digestible every 4 years. We can kind of anticipate where the narrative might be going, where they want to take the narrative, as far as who they tell us is being elected and why. That sets into folly as well, because remember, like it tells in 1 Corinthians 3:19, it says the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, right? And it says that also that he taketh the wise in his own craftiness, right? So Paul's quoting 2 verses there. But in 1 Corinthians 3:19, talks about the wisdom of this world being foolishness. So while we acknowledge it for what it is and know how it works, so we can just dialogue with people, being wise as serpents, but harmless as doves, we as Israelites and Israelite testers being called into this truth, we can speak to their level of reasoning when it comes to this politics or economics, but then know the deeper level behind the why behind everything that's going. That's what gives us that edge. That's why Joseph was able to confound all the wise men of his time, or Daniel was able to confound the wise men of his time, right? Because he was up against those same figures, like the guy who came up with these keys, right? These stargazers and astrologers and wise men and counselors, etc. They still couldn't keep up with the prophets of the Lord, regardless of the era. So we're tapped into that same source. Don't forget. And then verse 7, "I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth." Right? Talking about the topsy-turvy that we're dealing with now, where they're on top and we're not. We're supposed to be the wise ones, the they were viewed as the wise ones, but they're the foolish ones. And then you have to get it. But Deuteronomy 28, this is what I was referring to. Deuteronomy 28. Verse 13, as far as the 12 and 13, as far as the good part, us being the lenders, us being the head, that's the plus. But then the negative, the flip, is Deuteronomy 28, 43 and 44. So you can't go wrong with Deuteronomy 28 when we show the people. It's pretty clear, but yet and still, you must have eyes to see it, ears to hear it, and a heart to understand. Okay, well, we'll make an end here unless anyone else has any other scriptures or comments they want to bring out. Don't want to go super late. Cool. Just under 2 hours. All right, so once again, I gave that link to that video. It's only like about 4 to 6 minutes long. But it's then pretty much using these principles that they had lined up to say, where do you think things might be heading according to the narrative? Once again, this is just, worldly wisdom. But when it comes to certain aspects of these principles, we can see how they might align with the wisdom of the scriptures when it comes to, influencing people and, being able to address the wants and needs of the people and how that'll take care of you. Now, it's funny because from a righteous standpoint, from a righteous government standpoint, which is its own class in of itself, we can see the ultimate why the people rejoice when the righteous are in authority, right? Because it takes care of all things when it comes to the politics, the economics, all that. It's all going to be genuine. It's all going to be towards actual productivity, actual, reaping of one's labor, which in turn is going to what? Please the people. It's not just going to be you pretending to please the people, pretending to bring prosperity, but the prosperity never comes. That's what the wicked will let us down. They have let us down. Like I said, most sides will, in one of the next classes, we'll probably revisit that as a topic in of itself, as far as how true government is really supposed to work. While we consider this clown show that we've been inundated with day in and day out, and will be all throughout the days of the summer going into the fall until the supposed election day. Yeah, it's election day. It's election day, all right. Just like we're the elected of God, they elect their leaders too, to make us think that we're elected. Okay, so that's it. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll say Bashar Kadash, or like we see here, Bashar Kadash Kamayasha, which means fifth. Yasha Allah. Water for tuning in this evening. I know it was a little late on a Saturday, but glad to see everybody still in attendance. And if you weren't able to, it's recorded, so you can always watch it later and check the description of the video later to check out some of those things and check out that video that I have posted there in the chat as well, just to see, the way and how they try to size things up when it comes to this presidency, this upcoming presidency, and what the levers are, what the pulleys are that supposedly control this decision. All right. So, Shakath once again. With that, we'll do the closing prayers. Shalom. Thanks for watching. Rakateh Hal by Shemi Hal Rashad, Laharokat Todah, which just means blessed be the Most High in the name of Christ by way of the Holy Spirit. All right. So we'll talk to you later, Israel. Tuesday class coming up. Shalom. Barak Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Asheranth Nana Par Yagapan Thwara Aman. La Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Af Yasher Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of divine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Amakwa, Panyawa, Yerushalayim, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Barak Naweh. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Babakushai Shemai Lanaweh Aited Yemyen Aited Shalak Mike Allah Wala Alahayim Tazwadakim Le Shema Ayel Barak Rabhab Nagan Wachaziak Banye Yash Ale Washalak Lanawe Rabim Kakamad Rabim Ta'ai Rabim Bayanad Rabim Sabalanwa Rabim Mamawan Rabim Akwa Rabim Mahabim Rabim Haganad Rachanaya Wasalak Kau Katayam Nawe La Akim Wa Akiwa Wiash Ale Tam Ye Wa Iwalam Basham Yahushai Tawada Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahushai, please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahushua, thank you, so be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Barak Naweh Wayash Allah Wabat Yasaparim Shema Yashirale Yahweh Elohai Naweh Yahweh Achad. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us in Israel in the house of books. And then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Prayer for the food. Yahweh, Gadawo, Ba'Shem, Madawanya, Yahweh Shai, Babakushai, Barak, Maka Yanawa Shatayawa Yanawa Yayin Yanawa Lakham Yanawa Shakarat Yanawa Zakhak Shawayak Kadash Basham Yahosha the water Amen. All right, once again, we'll say Ashar Kadash once again. Have a blessed feast, Israel. Continue to watch and pray as always. The feast will be officially over Sunday sundown tomorrow, so definitely enjoy the feast, enjoy the festivities, definitely stay in the spirit. Continue to watch and pray as we get close to that day, and we'll talk to everybody in this upcoming week. All right, so Ashar Kadash once again, and Layla Tuah.
Layla Tawab.
Like that's why. Shakadash.
Shakada.